The mystic grill was burning, flames licking up the wooden walls and consuming everything in their path. And Damon Salvatore stood in the centre of the destruction, with blood on his hands and bodies scattered around him like broken dolls. His eyes were empty.
What the hell are you doing? Come out, Damon! The roof is coming down. We have to get out now.
Damon just smiled. It wasn't the smirk Stefan knew, the one edged with pain and self-deprecation. This was something else entirely, something hollow and cruel.
What have you done?
What I should have done a long time ago, brother.
What I should have done a long time ago, brother. Stopped pretending to be something I'm not. Stopped caring about people who were going to die anyway. Stopped playing the reformed hero when we both know I was always meant to be the villain. His voice was flat, conversational, like they were discussing the weather instead of standing in a tomb of Damon's creation. Stefan's hands clenched into fists. This isn't you. You turned it off. Why? What happened? Damon's laugh was sharp, brittle. What happened is I finally saw the truth. But don't worry, you'll understand soon enough. Everyone will. Before Stefan could respond, before he could reach for his brother, Damon was gone, vampire speed carrying him into the night, leaving Stefan standing alone in the burning building, with questions and bodies and the sinking realization that they'd lost Damon to the darkness again. But this time felt different, more final, like a door closing that might never open. Before we start, subscribe if you enjoy these Vampire Diaries stories, and after listening tell me in the comments, do you think there was another way to save Damon, or was turning off his humanity the only option he had left? 48 hours earlier, the world had been completely different. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Salvatore boarding house, warm and golden, and the smell of coffee and bacon filled the kitchen, where an unlikely family had gathered for breakfast. Elena stood at the stove flipping pancakes, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, humming softly to herself. Caroline sat at the island with her laptop open, multitasking between eating and answering emails for some event she was planning. Bonnie was on her second cup of coffee, still looking half asleep, while Stefan read the newspaper like he was living in a different century. Alaric had stopped by with Matt, both of them having apparently decided that free breakfast was worth the drive. And Damon leaned against the counter watching all of them with an expression that could only be described as contentedly amused. I'm just saying, Caroline announced to the room, if we're going to have the Founders' Day celebration this year, we need to actually plan it properly. Last time was a disaster. Matt snorted. Last time there was a supernatural crisis. There's always a supernatural crisis. Bonnie raised her coffee mug. To supernatural crises, may they give us at least 2 weeks of peace before the next one. They all clinked glasses and mugs, laughing, and Damon felt something warm settle in his chest. This was his family, this chaotic collection of humans and witches and vampires who somehow made Mystic Falls feel like home instead of the town that had tried to kill them repeatedly. Elena turned from the stove and caught his eye, smiling in that way that still made his heart do stupid things after all this time together. Damon, can you grab more orange juice from the fridge? He pushed off the counter and moved to her side, pulling the orange juice out but not stepping away. You know, he said quietly, just for her I could get used to this. The domestic bliss thing. It's disgustingly normal, and I kind of love it. Elena's smile widened and she leaned up to kiss him quickly. Who would have thought? Damon Salvatore, reformed bad boy, enjoying breakfast with friends like a regular person. Damon's expression turned mock serious. Tell anyone and I'll have to kill them to preserve my reputation. Stefan looked up from his newspaper. We can all hear you, you know. Vampire hearing. Caroline didn't even look up from her laptop. And it's adorable. Just accept that you're domesticated now, Damon. The playful bickering continued through breakfast, easy and familiar. The kind of morning that felt like a gift after everything they'd survived. After everyone had eaten and started to disperse, Damon found Elena on the front porch, sitting on the steps and looking out at the property with a thoughtful expression. He settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Elena glanced at him, just thinking about how normal everything feels right now. How happy I am. It's almost scary, you know, like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Damon took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Hey, we've earned this. We've fought enough supernatural threats and survived enough apocalypses to deserve some peace. Maybe this is just what life looks like when you're not constantly running from danger." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you. You know that? I love this version of you, the one who makes pancakes and banters with Caroline and looks at me like I'm your whole world." Damon's throat tightened with emotion he'd learned to let himself feel, instead of burying. "That's because you are my whole world, Elena. Everything good in my life, everything that makes me want to be better, it all comes back to you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, wrapped in each other's presence, and Damon thought about how far he'd come from the angry, reckless vampire who'd rolled into town years ago looking for Catherine and revenge. Elena had changed him, not by trying to fix him, but by loving him despite his darkness, by believing he could be more than his worst impulses. He'd fought so hard to become worthy of that love, and sitting here with her in the morning sunlight, he felt like maybe he'd actually succeeded. "What do you want for dinner tonight?" Elena asked, breaking the peaceful silence. "I was thinking we could do something special, just the two of us. Stefan's going to Caroline's, Bonnie has witch business, so we'd have the house to ourselves." Damon's smile turned mischievous. "Are you asking me on a date, Miss Gilbert?" Elena laughed. "I'm asking my boyfriend if he wants to have a romantic dinner." "There's a difference." Damon pulled her closer, kissing her temple. "Then yes, I would love to have a romantic dinner with you. I'll even cook, show off my very limited culinary skills." Elena turned to look at him, her expression soft and full of love. "You don't have to prove anything to me, Damon. You already are everything I need." The words settled into Damon's heart, and he kissed her properly this time, slow and sweet, pouring every ounce of love and gratitude and hope into it. When they pulled apart, Elena's eyes were bright, and she smiled against his lips. "I should get going. I promised Bonnie I'd help her with some research at the library." Damon stood and pulled her up with him. "Be safe. Call me if anything weird happens." Elena squeezed his hand. "It's Mystic Falls. Something weird always happens. But I will." She kissed him once more and headed to her car, waving as she drove away. Damon stood on the porch watching until her car disappeared, that warm feeling still glowing in his chest. Everything was perfect. Everything was finally, impossibly perfect. He should have known it wouldn't last. The call came 4 hours later while Damon was attempting to prepare something edible for dinner. Stefan answered his phone, and immediately his expression shifted from curious to concerned. "What? When?" "We'll be right there." He hung up and looked at Damon. That was Bonnie. Elena collapsed at the library. She's conscious, but something's wrong. The warm glow in Damon's chest transformed instantly into ice-cold fear. He dropped the knife he'd been using and grabbed his jacket. "Let's go." They drove to the library faster than was remotely safe, even by vampire standards, and found Bonnie kneeling beside Elena in the history section. Elena was sitting on the floor, pale and shaking, with blood smeared under her nose. The sight of it made something primal and terrified rise in Damon's throat. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands hovering, wanting to touch her but afraid he'd somehow make it worse. "Elena, what happened? Are you okay?" Elena tried to smile, but it came out strained. "I'm fine. I just got dizzy suddenly and then my nose started bleeding. It's probably nothing, just stress or low blood sugar or something." But Bonnie's expression said it wasn't nothing. "I felt it when she collapsed, a surge of dark magic. This isn't natural, Damon. Someone or something did this to her." Damon's fear crystallized into rage, the familiar companion that had gotten him through centuries of loss and pain. Who? Who would target Elena? Bonnie shook her head. "I don't know, but we need to get her somewhere safe, where I can examine her properly." They brought Elena back to the boarding house, Stefan helping her to the couch while Damon paced like a caged animal. Bonnie pulled out her grimoire and various magical supplies, setting up a diagnostic spell. Caroline arrived within minutes of getting the text, immediately going into caretaker mode, bringing Elena water and a blanket. Alaric showed up shortly after with Matt, both of them looking concerned. The whole family rallying because one of their own was hurt. Bonnie's spell revealed dark magic clinging to Elena like a shadow, ancient and purposeful. "It's a curse," Bonnie said, her voice tight with worry. "Very old, very powerful. But I can't identify the source or what it's meant to do. It's like nothing I've seen before." Elena protested from the couch. "I feel fine now, really. The dizziness passed and the nosebleed stopped. Maybe it was just a fluke." But even as she said it, she swayed slightly, and Damon was there in an instant, steadying her. "You're not fine, and we're not taking chances. Bonnie, what do you need to figure out what this curse is?" Bonnie was already pulling out more books. "Time and research. Caroline, can you help me go through these grimoires?" "Stefan, check the family archives for any mention of curses that match this magical signature." Everyone mobilised, falling into the familiar pattern of supernatural crisis management. But this felt different to Damon, more personal, more terrifying. This wasn't some external threat they could fight together. This was Elena, his Elena, being attacked by something they couldn't see or understand. As the hours passed and Elena's condition remained stable, but the curse remained unexplained, Damon felt anxiety gnawing at him. He stayed close to her, holding her hand, watching for any sign that the symptoms were returning. Around midnight, Elena finally fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from the day's events. Stefan convinced Bonnie and Caroline to take a break and get some rest, promising they'd continue research in the morning. After everyone had left or gone to bed, Damon sat alone in the study with a glass of bourbon, staring at nothing and trying not to spiral into worst-case scenarios. That's when he noticed it. An old leather-bound book on the shelf that he didn't remember being there before. It was positioned oddly, sticking out slightly like it wanted to be found. Damon approached it cautiously and pulled it down. The cover was unmarked, ancient, and when he opened it, he found pages written in a language that shifted and changed, old magic translating itself for the reader. He began to read, and with each word the ice in his chest spread further. The book detailed a curse, ancient and powerful, known as the Salvatore Darkness. Born of shadow and blood, the last son of Salvatore carries poison in his heart. All who earn his true love will wither and fade, consumed by the darkness he cannot control. His love is death, his touch is rot, and only in the absence of feeling can those he cherishes survive. Damon's hands shook as he continued reading. The curse had been placed on the Salvatore line generations ago by a witch they'd wronged. A curse that activated in the bloodline's darkest member, the one most touched by violence and death, the one whose capacity for love was matched only by his capacity for destruction. Him. It had always been him. The book listed signs, patterns he recognised with dawning horror. His mother, dead young from illness. Catherine, dead shortly after loving him. Rose, dead from a werewolf bite. Lexi, killed. Every person he'd truly loved, or who'd loved him, had suffered. He'd always thought it was bad luck, the universe punishing him, karma for his sins. But it wasn't randomness. It was a curse. He was the curse. And now Elena, beautiful Elena, who'd loved him despite everything, who'd seen good in him when he couldn't see it himself, she was sick with dark magic because his love was poisoning her. Damon felt something break inside him, some fundamental piece of self that had been holding together his redemption. He'd spent years trying to become worthy of Elena's love, trying to be the man she deserved, but it had all been pointless because his very existence, his very love, was the thing killing her. The book offered only one solution, one way to break the curse's hold on those he loved. Only in the absence of true feeling, in the void of humanity's switch, can the poison be contained. The cursed one must choose, love and destroy, or become nothing and save those he cherishes. Damon read the passage 3 times, hoping he was misunderstanding, but the meaning was clear. If he turned off his humanity, stopped loving Elena, stopped caring about anyone, the curse would go dormant. His lack of feeling would neutralize the poison. But if he kept his humanity, kept loving her, Elena would die. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually. The dark magic would consume her. He was killing her with every moment of love, every tender touch, every declaration of devotion. His redemption, his happiness, his love. It was all Elena's death sentence. Damon stood on shaking legs and moved to where Elena slept on the couch. She looked peaceful, beautiful, alive. He knelt beside her and just watched her breathe for a long moment, memorizing every detail. Then he leaned forward and kissed her forehead gently. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry for loving you. I'm sorry I'm the reason you're sick. But I'm going to fix it. I'm going to save you the only way I know how." Elena stirred slightly but didn't wake, and Damon was grateful. He couldn't do this if she was awake, if she was looking at him with those eyes that had always seen too much. He stood and took one last look at her, burning the image into his memory, because he knew that after what he was about to do, this moment of love and pain would be gone, replaced by emptiness. Then Damon closed his eyes and reached inside himself for the switch, the thing that had saved him from pain so many times before. He thought about the curse, about how his love was killing Elena, about how the only way to save her was to stop being the person she'd made him become. And he flipped it. The world went quiet. The pain disappeared. The love drained away like water from a broken glass, leaving nothing behind but cold clarity. Damon opened his eyes and looked at Elena sleeping on the couch, and felt absolutely nothing. No love, no guilt, no pain. Just empty recognition that this was a person he used to care about. He turned and walked out of the boarding house into the night, and behind him, Elena's breathing became easier, the dark magic that had been slowly killing her beginning to fade, because the love that fed it was gone. Stefan woke to sunlight and the unsettling feeling that something was wrong. He couldn't pinpoint what exactly, just an instinct honed by years of supernatural crisis. He went downstairs and found Elena still sleeping on the couch, but she looked better. The colour returned to her face, breathing easy. No sign of Damon. Stefan checked his brother's room, the study, the entire house, and found it empty. Damon's phone was on the kitchen counter, deliberately left behind. That's when Stefan saw the open book in the study, the ancient tome sitting on the desk. pages still displaying text about the Salvatore darkness curse. Stefan read it with growing horror, understanding immediately what Damon must have thought, what conclusion he must have reached. "No," Stefan breathed. "Damon, no, you idiot." He checked on Elena again, noting that her symptoms really had improved overnight, and that confirmation made his stomach sink. Damon had tested his theory somehow. He'd done something to distance himself emotionally, and Elena had gotten better. So he'd done the only thing Damon's self-destructive brain would conceive of. He'd turned it off. Elena woke an hour later feeling remarkably better, the fatigue and dizziness completely gone. She found Stefan in the kitchen looking worried. "Where's Damon?" Stefan hesitated, trying to figure out how to explain. Before he could answer, Bonnie and Caroline arrived, and shortly after, the others. They'd all received cryptic text messages from an unknown number telling them to come to the boarding house immediately. As they gathered in the living room, Stefan's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. "Stefan, good morning." Damon's voice was pleasant, conversational, and completely devoid of warmth. "Glad to see everyone's awake. I assume by now you found my little research project." Stefan's jaw clenched. "Damon, where are you?" Damon's laugh was cold. "Somewhere you won't find me unless I want you to. But don't worry, I'm not coming back. I did what needed to be done. Elena's feeling better, isn't she? That's because I stopped loving her. The curse is dormant now. You're welcome." Elena's face went white. "Damon, what are you talking about? What curse?" Damon's voice was directed at her now. "The Salvatore darkness, Elena. Turns out I'm literally cursed to kill everyone I love. My love is poison. You were dying because of me. So I fixed it. I stopped caring. You're safe now, all of you are. As long as I don't give a damn about any of you, the curse can't touch you." Bonnie grabbed the phone. "Damon, there are ways to break curses. Let us help you." Damon's sigh was theatrical. "Bonnie, always trying to save everyone. But I don't want to be saved. Turning it off was the best decision I've made in decades. No pain, no guilt, no constantly worrying about failing the people I care about. This is freedom." Caroline's voice was sharp. "This is you running away from your feelings like you always do when things get hard." Damon's tone turned cold, cruel. "Caroline, you're projecting. I'm not running from anything. I'm finally accepting what I am, a vampire who spent too long pretending to be human. Elena's safe, and I'm free. Everyone wins." Elena's voice broke. "I don't win, Damon. I need you. I love you." The line was silent for a long moment. Then Damon spoke again, and his voice was emptier than before. "That's not my problem anymore. Good luck with your lives." He hung up. The group sat in stunned silence, processing what had just happened. Stefan moved to the study and brought back the ancient book, showing everyone the passage about the curse. Bonnie read it with increasing concern. This is legitimate dark magic. Very old, but Damon's wrong about the solution. Elena looked up, hope flickering. "What do you mean?" Bonnie was already flipping through pages. Turning off his humanity will contain the curse temporarily, but it doesn't break it. And if he stays without humanity long enough, the darkness will consume him completely. We need to find the actual counter-curse, the way to break this permanently. Stefan stood. Then we research. But we also need to find Damon before he does something we can't fix. Caroline pulled out her laptop. "I'll track his credit cards, phone records, anything." Matt and Alaric volunteered to canvass the town, check with contacts. But even as they mobilised, They all knew the bigger problem. Humanity off Damon wasn't just dangerous because of what he might do. He was dangerous because he'd think he was doing the right thing by staying away, by keeping them safe through his own emptiness. They had to convince him to turn it back on, and that meant finding him first. It didn't take long. Damon wanted to be found. The first report came in around noon, a bar on the edge of town, patrons attacked, several dead. By the time they arrived, Damon was gone, but the message was clear. He wasn't hiding, he was proving a point. The second incident was worse. A house party, teenagers, multiple casualties. Damon had walked in, killed indiscriminately, and left before police arrived. Stefan tracked him to an abandoned warehouse, and when he confronted his brother, he barely recognised him. Damon stood in the empty space, blood on his clothes, expression bored. "Little brother, come to lecture me about the value of human life?" Stefan kept his distance, cautious. "Come home, Damon. Let us help you." Damon's smile was sharp. "I am helping. Every person I kill. Every terrible thing I do, it keeps me from caring." The more monster I am, the safer Elena is. Don't you see? This is me being selfless. Stefan's voice was steady. This is you, being terrified and using the humanity switch as an excuse. Damon moved fast, suddenly in Stefan's space, hand around his throat. "Don't psychoanalyze me, Stefan. I'm not tortured right now. I'm not conflicted. I'm free." He released Stefan and stepped back. "Go home. Tell Elena she's safe. That's all that matters." He was gone before Stefan could respond, leaving his brother alone in the warehouse with the sinking feeling that this time might be different. This time, Damon might be truly lost. Over the next 24 hours, Damon's body count rose, and with each death, he proved his point. He didn't care. He'd become the efficient, ruthless killer they'd all feared he could be, and he was doing it in his twisted logic, to save the people he'd once loved. The group worked frantically, Bonnie diving deep into research about the Salvatore curse while Stefan and Alaric tried to track Damon's movements. Elena barely slept, guilt and fear warring in her chest. Caroline coordinated efforts, keeping everyone focused, refusing to let them fall apart. Finally, after hours of research across multiple grimoires and magical texts, Bonnie made a discovery. "I found it," she announced, and everyone gathered around. "The counter curse. It's possible to break the Salvatore darkness, but it's complicated." Stefan leaned forward. "What do we need?" Bonnie read from the ancient text. "The curse feeds on suppressed love, on the darkness in the Salvatore line. It was designed to punish them by making their capacity for love a weapon. But that also means love is the key to breaking it." Elena's breath caught. What kind of love? Bonnie looked at her seriously. True love, freely given and accepted. The cursed one has to embrace their feelings, not run from them, and someone has to love them enough to risk the curse. It's a leap of faith. If Damon turns his humanity back on and fully embraces loving you, Elena, and you stay committed to loving him despite the risk, the curse breaks. The magic can't sustain itself in the face of freely chosen, unafraid love. Caroline frowned. That sounds too simple. Bonnie shook her head. It's not simple at all. It requires complete vulnerability from both people. No walls, no protection, no fear. That's what the curse feeds on. Fear and suppression. When you choose love anyway, the curse has nothing to sustain it. Stefan understood the problem immediately. So we need to convince Damon to turn his humanity back on, make him face all the pain and fear he's running from, and then get him to trust that loving Elena won't kill her. Matt, ever practical, spoke up. How do we even get him to listen long enough to explain this? Elena stood. Decision made. We don't explain it to him while he's like this. We flip his switch first, make him feel again. Once he's got his humanity back, we can show him the solution. Bonnie nodded. That's the right approach. But flipping someone's humanity switch against their will is difficult. It requires leveraging their deepest emotions, finding the crack in their armour. They all looked at each other, and unspoken understanding passed between them. Elena and Stefan were the cracks in Damon's armour. They were the ones who could reach him. They just had to find him first, and survive long enough to make him feel. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Damon called Stefan's phone, his voice carrying that same unsettling pleasantness. Meet me at the old Lockwood cellar in an hour. Come alone, or I start killing everyone in the grill, Stefan agreed, and despite the come alone directive, the whole group formulated a plan. Stefan would go in first, keep Damon talking. Elena would arrive next, because they needed her presence to crack Damon's emotional walls. Bonnie would be ready with magic to contain him if necessary. Caroline and Alaric would be backup, making sure Damon couldn't escape. When Stefan arrived at the cellar, he found Damon sitting on the stone bench, looking completely relaxed. Stefan, always so punctual. Stefan descended the stairs cautiously. Why did you call me here? Damon stood, brushing off his jeans. Because I want you to understand. I need you to stop trying to fix this and let me be what I am, what I've always been. Stefan shook his head. You're not a monster, Damon. You've worked too hard to become something better to throw it all away now. Damon's expression hardened. I threw it away to save Elena. Don't you get that? Every moment I loved her, I was killing her. The curse is real, Stefan. You read the book. Stefan's voice was calm, reasonable. The curse is real, but your solution is wrong. Bonnie found a way to break it, permanently, but it requires you to feel, to embrace your humanity, not suppress it. Damon laughed coldly. Convenient. The solution to my love being poisonous is to love harder? That's not a solution, that's a death sentence for Elena. That's when Elena appeared at the top of the cellar stairs. Damon's expression flickered, just for a second, before the emptiness returned. Elena, you shouldn't be here. Elena descended slowly, every step deliberate. I'm exactly where I need to be. With you. Damon's jaw clenched, the first real sign of emotion. I don't want you here. I don't want to see you. Elena kept coming closer. Because seeing me makes you feel something? Because even with your humanity off, some part of you still cares? Damon's voice turned sharp, cruel. I don't care about you. You're just a girl who was convenient. Who looked like Catherine. You were never special. The words were designed to hurt, to push her away. But Elena had spent enough time with Damon to know when he was lying, even to himself. If that were true, you wouldn't have turned off your humanity to save me. You could have just walked away, let the curse take me. But you didn't, because you love me, Damon Salvatore, even now when you're trying desperately not to. Damon moved Vampire fast, suddenly in her space, hand wrapping around her throat, not squeezing but threatening. Don't project your feelings onto me, Elena. I could kill you right now and feel nothing. Elena met his eyes, unafraid. Then do it. If you really don't care, if there's really nothing left of the man I love, then prove it. Kill me. Stefan tensed, ready to intervene, but Elena held up her other hand, stopping him. She kept her gaze locked on Damon's. But you won't, because somewhere under all this emptiness, you're still you, and you would rather die than hurt me." Damon's hand tightened slightly, his expression warring between empty and anguished. "Stop." Elena's voice softened. "I love you. Even with your humanity off, even when you're trying to be a monster, I love you. And I'm not afraid of the curse. I'm not afraid of loving you." Something cracked in Damon's expression, a fissure in the careful emptiness. His hand dropped from her throat and he stepped back. "You should be afraid. You should run." Elena moved closer, closing the distance he'd created. "I'm not running. I'm choosing you, curse and all. I'm choosing to love you and risk everything because a life without you isn't living. You taught me that. You taught me to be brave, to fight for what matters. And you matter, Damon." Stefan spoke then, his voice carrying weight. "She's not the only one. I'm not afraid either. You're my brother, and I've watched you become someone extraordinary. I'm not giving up on you." Damon shook his head, but his voice was less certain. "You don't understand. The curse is real. My love kills people." Elena reached out and took his hand. "Then we break the curse together. We love each other anyway, without fear, without holding back. And that's what breaks the magic. Love freely chosen is stronger than any curse." Damon looked at their joined hands, and for the first time since flipping his switch, he looked uncertain. "What if you're wrong? What if I turn it back on, and you die anyway?" Elena squeezed his hand. "What if you're wrong? What if shutting down your humanity was exactly what the curse wanted? Making you isolated and alone, unable to love or be loved? Maybe that's how it wins." The words hit something deep, and Damon's walls started to crumble. Stefan moved closer, standing on Damon's other side. "Let us help you, brother. Turn it back on. Feel everything. And then we'll break this curse together." Damon stood between them, Elena holding one hand and Stefan close on his other side, and felt the emptiness start to crack. He'd thought turning it off would save them, but standing here, seeing Elena look at him with fearless love and Stefan with unwavering faith, he realised he'd done exactly what the curse wanted. He'd isolated himself, cut off from the very love that could break the spell. "It's going to hurt," Damon said quietly, and his voice was his own again, not the cold stranger. Elena nodded. "We'll be here through all of it." Damon closed his eyes and reached inside himself for the switch he'd flipped 2 days ago, for the humanity he'd buried under emptiness. And he flipped it back. The pain hit like a tidal wave, every emotion he'd suppressed crashing back at once. Love for Elena. Fierce and consuming. Guilt for what he'd done, the people he'd killed in his emptiness. Fear that the curse was still real, that he was still poisoning the people he loved. It was overwhelming, devastating, and he would have collapsed under the weight of it if Elena wasn't there, if Stefan wasn't catching him, holding him up. Damon gasped, tears streaming down his face, and Elena pulled him close. "I've got you. We've got you. You're not alone." Damon stayed collapsed in Elena's arms, while the full force of his humanity crashed over him in waves. Stefan held them both steady, a grounding presence. Bonnie and Caroline appeared at the cellar entrance, having heard enough to know it was safe to approach. Bonnie immediately began preparing the counter-curse, pulling out ingredients and a small grimoire. "We need to do this now, while he's vulnerable, while the emotions are raw," Bonnie said, descending into the cellar. "The curse breaks when love is freely chosen without fear. That means both of you need to commit completely." Elena pulled back enough to look at Damon, whose face was streaked with tears, eyes red and raw. "I'm scared," he admitted, voice breaking. "I'm terrified that the moment I say I love you, you'll start dying again." Elena cupped his face in her hands. "Then we do it together. We face that fear and choose love anyway. That's what breaks it." Bonnie set up a small circle, marking symbols in salt. Elena, Damon, both of you step into the circle. Stefan, Caroline, Alaric form a boundary around them. They moved into position, and Bonnie began chanting in Latin, ancient words of binding and breaking. She looked at Elena and Damon. "Say it. Say what you feel without holding anything back. No fear. No walls. Complete vulnerability." Damon turned to face Elena fully, taking both her hands. "I love you. I've loved you from the moment you stopped seeing me as the villain and started seeing me as someone who could be saved. You made me want to be better, made me believe I could be more than my worst impulses, and I'm terrified that my love will destroy you. But I'm choosing to love you anyway, because a world where I don't love you isn't worth existing in." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Damon Salvatore. I love your darkness and your light, your flaws and your strength. I love how you fight for the people you care about, how you've changed and grown, and I'm not afraid of any curse, because my love for you is stronger than magic. I choose you completely, without reservation." As they spoke, Bonnie's chanting grew louder, and the air in the cellar began to shimmer with magical energy. The curse, ancient and dark, reacted to the freely given love with resistance, trying to maintain its hold. But love unafraid, love without walls or fear or hesitation, was antithetical to the curse's very nature. The dark magic began to dissolve, burning away in the face of something it couldn't comprehend or combat. Damon gasped as he felt something break inside him, chains he'd carried for so long snapping and falling away. Elena felt it too, a lightness like a weight she hadn't known she was carrying suddenly lifted. Bonnie's chanting reached a crescendo, and then there was a flash of brilliant light and silence. The curse was broken. Damon and Elena stood in the circle, breathing hard, looking at each other with wonder. "It worked," Bonnie said, lowering her hands. "The Salvatore darkness is gone. Permanently." Stefan smiled, relief and joy flooding his expression. "It's over." Damon pulled Elena close, burying his face in her hair, and for the first time in days, he felt truly safe. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for turning it off, for all those people I hurt. I thought I was saving you, but I was just running scared." Elena held him tighter. "You were trying to protect me in the only way you knew how. We all make mistakes when we're terrified. What matters is, you came back. You chose to feel, to love, despite the fear." They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other and surrounded by family. Then Stefan cleared his throat. "We should probably get out of this cellar and figure out how to handle the fallout from the last few days." The reminder of what Damon had done while his humanity was off brought fresh guilt, but Elena took his hand. "We'll figure it out together. All of us." Over the next few weeks, they dealt with the consequences. Damon compelled witnesses, covered tracks, and worked with Alaric and Matt to minimise the official investigation into the attacks. The guilt was heavy, but Elena and Stefan helped him carry it, reminded him that the person who did those things wasn't him, was the emptiness the curse had driven him to. Bonnie researched the Salvatore line, finding evidence that the curse had affected other members of the family throughout history, explaining generations of tragedy. With it broken, Damon and Stefan were both finally free of inherited darkness. Caroline threw herself into helping Damon rebuild his sense of self, dragging him to group activities and refusing to let him isolate. "You don't get to wallow in guilt forever," she announced one afternoon. "You're going to forgive yourself and move forward like the rest of us have had to do after our humanity switch incidents." Gradually, Damon began to heal. The nightmares faded, the guilt became manageable, and his relationship with Elena strengthened. They'd been tested in the worst possible way and survived. The curse was broken, his humanity was intact, and for the first time in his long life, Damon felt truly free. 6 weeks after the curse was broken, Damon planned something special. He took Elena to the spot where they'd first admitted they loved each other, a clearing in the woods outside town. He'd set up lights and brought champagne, creating a pocket of magic in the wilderness. Elena looked around, delighted and curious. "What's all this?" Damon pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist. "This is me celebrating being alive, being with you, and not having any ancient curses trying to kill us." Elena laughed, resting her hands on his chest. "That is worth celebrating." Damon's expression turned more serious. "I almost lost you, almost lost myself trying to save you, and I realised something through all of it." Elena waited, patient. "I realised that running from fear, shutting down emotion, that's not protection. Real courage is feeling everything, loving despite the risk, trusting that together we're stronger than whatever the universe throws at us. You taught me that." Elena's eyes glistened with tears. "We taught each other. You showed me how to be brave too. How to fight for what matters." Damon kissed her, slow and deep, pouring every ounce of love and gratitude into it. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Elena Gilbert. No curses, no conditions, no fear. Just love." Elena smiled, radiant and free. "I love you too, Damon Salvatore." Forever. They stood in their magical clearing under the stars, two people who'd fought through darkness and curse and fear to find each other. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Mystic Falls never was peaceful for long. But they'd face it together, with humanity intact and love unafraid. That night, when they returned to the boarding house, Stefan was waiting with bourbon and a knowing smile. "So, romantic evening went well?" Damon poured 3 glasses. It went perfect. No supernatural crises, no life-threatening revelations, just a normal date with my girlfriend. Stefan raised his glass. To normal dates and broken curses. Damon and Elena clinked their glasses against his. To family, Elena added. To the people who pull us back from the darkness. They drank, and the bourbon was smooth, and the house was warm, and everything was right in a way it hadn't been for a very long time. Damon looked around at his brother and the woman he loved, and thought about how close he'd come to losing this. How the curse had almost won by making him afraid of his own heart. But love had been stronger. It always was, when you were brave enough to choose it. Later, as Elena slept beside him, Damon lay awake thinking about everything that had happened. The curse had revealed a truth he'd always suspected, but never fully believed. His love was powerful. Powerful enough to be weaponized. Powerful enough to break ancient magic. Powerful enough to save him from his own darkness. He'd spent so long seeing his capacity for love as a weakness, something that made him vulnerable and caused pain. But Elena had shown him it was his greatest strength, the ability to feel deeply, to care fiercely, to love without reservation. That was what made him more than just a vampire. That was what made him human in all the ways that mattered. He pulled Elena closer, and she murmured in her sleep, settling against him. The curse was gone, but more importantly, the fear was gone. He wasn't afraid of his own heart anymore. Whatever came next, whatever supernatural threat or personal crisis, he'd face it with his humanity intact, because turning it off hadn't saved anyone. Turning it back on, choosing to feel despite the pain, that's what had broken the curse. Love freely given, without fear, without walls. That was the answer. It always had been. If you finished this story, tell me in the comments whether you think Damon made the right choice turning off his humanity to protect Elena, or if there was a better way he could have handled discovering the curse. And subscribe if you want more Vampire Diaries stories that explore the complicated nature of love, sacrifice, and what it truly means to be human.